Hi, welcome to my webinar about smoothly switching to full site editing. My name is Anne Bovelett. I'm your host today, and I'm going to spare you a long introduction about myself. If you want to know more on the dedicated website that I created here, you can actually find the link to my website, and I would happily invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm open to digital coffee talks at any time. Go ahead. Today, I am going to walk you through what it's like to switch to full site editing if you have been working with commercial page builders for many years. And I will also give you some of the background on why I think this is a very good business decision for your agency, right? To keep myself and this webinar in check, I have created this agenda and I'm going to walk you through all those 7 points mentioned here. And after that, we're going to go into using the block editor itself. So the first part is going to go pretty fast is just to give you some of the terminology, some of the global information about full site editing. And I'm doing it this way because experience taught me that it really helps once we get into the practical part. And the practical part is not going to be a full-blown course in full site editing, but it's going to give you a sense of what you can do with it. And I am sure you will find that that is a lot more than you would probably think. I know it's the conclusion I drew 2 years ago when Thomas Koschwitz from Greyd came to me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, can I show you this suite of tools that we built for our agency when we were still creating websites for others? I would like to share with you and hear what you think," because he knew I was much into commercial page builders in general. All right, so he invited me and I saw it, and then he opened up the block editor and I was like, no way. No way that I'm going to work with the block editor. It's clunky. It is difficult. There's so much I can't do. And within 10, 15 minutes, he managed to convince me otherwise. And the smooth in the title of this webinar actually has to do with giving up resistance and to let go of certain expectations because they are in the way of what really is. All right, so here we go. So how does full site editing differ from commercial page builders? If I put it there dry, with both, you can create sites and edit content, but with WordPress and its core, the development, the maintenance, the security updates lie with core. And the sheer number of people working on core is so much larger than any commercial product could bring. Not the fault of this product, but to me, it is a safe feeling that whenever something needs to be fixed really fast, it is happening. And it's happening on a regular basis. WordPress is pushing out updates at a very, very strong pace, right? The second thing is because full site editing is working on WordPress core, it is fast, it is lean. What it's not is what you see is what you get. You get a page building experience, but not the WYSIWYG experience, as that is called in short, and for good reason. Because when people started to build the block editor, they were and still are about restraint instead of giving all the toys and tools in one box. The downside of having these slick commercial products is that what is happening in the back end is also costing a lot of energy. It's bad for sustainability. It's also bad for our patients. It can take a long time before something loads, for example. But let's not get too deep into that. Then there is this thing about terminology. Terminology in WordPress is confusing, especially lately. We're talking about classic themes, we're talking about block themes, and now we're talking about block themes in specific, right? So a block theme is like a house. So the theme actually determines the overall structure, the architectural style of the house, right? And then inside the house, you work with templates. And templates are like the floor plan of a specific room, like the kitchen, the living room. It defines the layout of the room, and the content is the furniture. So again, theme is the architectural structure, template is the floor plan, and content is the furniture. If you remember these three things, it's going to be much easier to avoid confusion between what the difference is between editing a site and editing a page. If you follow my mouse here to the left, you see I have the black top bar that we all know from WordPress. Here too, it gives me an option to edit the site or edit the page. All right. And this is the second topic. Are we talking about site editor or page editor? Well, the difference is this. The site editor is like an architect designing the blueprint for a building, determining the layout, the structure, and the overall appearance. What I was just talking about. With the site editor, you actually are master of the theme. Even if you got a theme that you bought from internet or that you downloaded from the .org repository, or even someone who created a custom block theme for you, with the site editor, you can touch a lot of stuff inside a website. There is no such thing as a page editor. It's called the block editor. And it's actually the block editor that you use inside the site editor to build your templates, your template parts, and your patterns and your content. Patterns, I realize, is a part that I forgot in the terminology. Patterns are actually like pre-designed blocks, layouts. It could be something as simple as a section with a heading and text, but it could also be images. I will get into patterns a bit later, but just to stick with the terminology, there you have it. Okay. Then there is the styles, and this is very important. If you work with the block editor and the site editor, you will want to set everything that you can set beforehand. It saves you a ton of time. So you're going to set your color scheme, you're going to set your spacings, you're going to set your breakpoints, your responsive settings, and maybe some of you now are like, breakpoints, but the site editor and the block editor don't offer breakpoints out of the box. No, they don't. But many of the block themes that are out there, they do. And so that's my favorite tool, the block theme inside of Greyd.Suite. I'm going to demo that to you in a minute. All right. Then there is this thing with the patterns. I was just talking about that before. It's a pre-designed collection of blocks. Now, patterns is a thing of beauty because with patterns, it's like you have this box of Lego, this big bucket, and you want to build this Lego house, and you take all these blocks and you start constructing the wall. Now, having to construct this wall over and over again, that is bothersome. It is very time consuming. You don't want to do that. So what you can do, which you can't do with real Lego, obviously, is you're going to say, okay, I'm going to save this as a pre-made pattern. And I know pattern is a confusing way of phrasing it, especially for Europeans. Um, and in a way, like for example, the one of the best known page builders, Elementor, a pattern is something like a global element if it's a synced element, because you have unsynced and synced patterns. I will demo it to you in a minute, and that is what I'm going to do on this web page. Now, another problem that people are telling me, like, oh my, I can do so much with the block editor. I can see that, especially after they've seen me or Thomas at work. And then the shock comes, like, if I can change all that, my customer can change all that. They're going to break my site. I don't want to do that. It's horrible. Well, there's a way to protect your layouts with something I call dynamic templates. WordPress has a similar functionality in core, but in Greyd.Suite, for example, they took this to a next level. And then there is this thing about dynamic data. One of the biggest problems in so many page builders and themes with page building capabilities is that you are not boss of what your query loop is going to look like. But in WordPress and core and the block editor, you are, because they have this thing called a query loop. Again, it's part of the terminology because some call this the grid or just simply loop. But the official naming convention in WordPress is query loop. Okay, so let's get into the practical part, and you will see that the block editor is by far not as clunky as you would think. I mean, I thought it was clunky, but not anymore. Right. So let's go to the demo site that I have here, which I courageously called showing off. What you see here is actually the hub. This is part of Greyd.Suite in itself. It's why I love this as an agency tool, because taking a segue here, I can actually manage tons and tons of sites on several different servers if I want to, and I can break out sites of this and move them as a single site out to the hosting of my customer, but I can also manage them inside my multi-site install. It's a thing of beauty. So if you want to know more about this, just give me a ring and I will happily show you. Anyway, back to the theme. So what you see here is the block theme by Greyd once you install it. And I often hear from people about block themes in general. They are so boring. Well, I don't think this is boring. I think this looks really nice. But I do get what people mean. I mean, if you go to places like Theme Forest, you see these full-blown designed websites with sliders and heroes and the whole shebang. And block themes in general, compared to that, seem a bit spartanic. This is because with block themes, you do not reinvent the wheel for your user. You actually give your user, in this case, me and you, the whole set to do it as you like. It's like Lego. You get this whole box of Lego and you get to build walls and castles and spaceships and cars and complete cities. So this is one side of block themes. Something that block theme providers can give you are so-called patterns, those pre-made layouts. They are fantastic. And I'm going to get into that in a second. Now, if you install something like Greyd.Suite, which you can actually download, by the way, you can use it for free as long as you like, so you can really try around what it actually feels like to work with full site editing in general. If you install it, the first thing you get is this layout. And then in the bottom, it gives you a style guide. I, as originally a designer, I love this style guide because it gives me an immediate sense of my spacings, of my fonts, of my button stylings, and on and on and on. And as you can see here, this looks a little bit different from what I have here, because I actually imported my entire styling set from my website. This is one of the ways that I save time. I have all these demonstration websites and I want to show off how things work. And I love to be that in a certain style with my spacings, with my fonts, with my everything set already. Boom. And I do not want to reinvent the wheel because that takes time. And time is money. I mean, with love and empathy, which I have a lot of, you can set small changes in motion. But if you want to change big things, sorry, people, this is about capitalism. Time is money. You want to optimize your processes so you have time left for things that give you a better quality of life, right? Okay. Sorry for segueing into that. So I took all my styles here and I imported that into this one. Now, this has a certain color scheme. So color schemes are something, or color palettes is something that the creator of a block theme can actually give you. And to be clear, I am mainly talking to you as an audience that is using tools with page building capabilities to create websites. If you are more into the development part, I would suggest you go follow a bunch of people whose links I will share with you in the notes that are coming with the email tomorrow. The color scheme is actually one of those things that you set in advance. Your theme colors, your company colors, whatever, you set the whole palette. But if you install a block theme, whether it's Greyd theme or any other theme, you will have these palettes. And it doesn't mean you're stuck with them because block themes, again, they are like Lego. You get to change the colors of the Lego blocks. So if I go here and I choose to edit the site, I go into what is called the blog home. Now, the blog home is something that WordPress always takes as a default, whether you use classic WordPress or not. Um, if you install WordPress freshly, it's going to show you the blog post. Okay, now to go into site editing, which I just clicked to the actual editing, I'm going to click inside the page. Now on the right, I see something about the template and I see something about blocks, but I have no block selected. If I open here the list view, you will see that there are three things mainly listed here: the header, a group, and a footer. All right. The footer has a different color. It's purple. Purple means it's a synced pattern. And that means, or a synced template, a template part. It means if you change this, it's going to change wherever this is displayed. Okay, so if I go into the header and I would want to add my site logo, for example, this is where I would do that. And I would click it, and as soon as I click it, this opens. You could also open this on the left manually, and you will see it says, hey, I want your site logo, which you can upload and go to the media library. I'm not going to do that because otherwise this is going to be a long, long story. But the gist of it is that everything that you see here can be edited. Every element is visible in this list view. As soon as I click something, it gets highlighted here on the left. And when I have highlighted it on the right, I can actually change all the settings in the block. Now, if you're used to those shiny 1000 option commercial page builders like I was, initially you think, but this is so clunky. Oh, wait, I have settings here, and here I have styles. Whew, okay. You have to open different tabs instead of getting everything at once. But you know what the downside is of getting things at once? Everything is teeny tiny little, very small. And if you're young, maybe this is not a problem for you, but if you're getting a bit older like I am, it is a problem. And having this crisp, clean layout here for me is balm on my soul. Anyway, so we are still in site editing. You can also see it because you see this thing here that is purple. It says block home. The fact that it's purple also tells you you are into the entire theme and you're editing the site as a whole. This is very important because if you get confused, it happens to me sometimes, or happened, I should say, that I started working with this. I was like, am I in a page? Am I in the theme? Am I inside a template? I don't know where I am. And I would start changing stuff and I would panic and go like, what is this? I changed something here and it changed everywhere. This is one of the reasons why I gave you these definitions between site editing, block editing, template parts, patterns, and so on. Okay, now here on the top right, we have a couple of choices. One of them is the general styles. This is the styles that come with WordPress core. And if someone has created this very nice block theme for you, probably this person or this company has given you several possibilities to work on the styles, or click styles and choose. So let's say I like this color scheme a lot better. I will click it and I get an entirely different color scheme here. The people from Greyd actually implemented this style guide, so you can see what the primary color is, the secondary, tertiary color, and so on. So let's say I choose that one and I go back because it's close to the colors that I like to use, but I still, of course, want to change a couple of things. So sorry, I clicked too fast. I'm going to go into colors. Now, here you have the palette. This is the theme. So this is going to be displayed in all kinds of places in your theme. And you can change these. So if you don't like this color to be it, or if your design describes you differently, you change it. So let's say I change it to this dark blue. And you see primary color, secondary color, tertiary color changes. I hear developers who say, I like to use a page builder that gives me all the variables. Yeah, I get that. If you're really technical, you like to work with variables. That's very techy, very geeky if you're not into that. But actually, that is what WordPress does. That is what the site editor does. Because it's give primary is a variable. Secondary is a variable. So then there is this thing about the fonts. Now, as you see, if you notice, the fonts and the button styles all changed. The ones that I had before were rounded and there was yellow going on. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And this is because I had imported my styles from another website. So let's say I save this. I'm going to leave this as is, right? And then I want to go back and I'm going to look at our beautiful program here where we are still in the question, are we inside the site or inside a page? Well, now we were inside the site. We're in the block home template. To get to this part, by the way, is either through Edit Site when you're in the front end or to go through Appearance in the editor. And then things are pretty clear. You can edit navigation, and you can, in fact, create several kinds of navigations. You can tell WordPress, hey, on this page, I want to use another template with another navigation. And this is incredibly powerful. This is something that commercial page builders give you as well. But now you can do this in core. You don't need to depend on external parties for this. Then you have all these styles again. You can go straight into your pages. And as you see, I have something called Blog Home again and a sample page. Then there are the templates. The templates are very important because that, for example, single posts determine how your blog posts are displayed. This is a classic one. It gives you a featured image and the content block, and inside the content block is everything that appears when you edit a page. We're going to get to that in a minute. And then, of course, you might get into a situation where you're like, yeah, but I created a custom post type and I don't want to look that, don't want that to look like a single post, like a blog post. Here you are, master of the WordPress universe. You can say, okay, I want to create a single item. And then if you had this custom post type, that post type would be listed here. You open that, and then you add in maybe the synced header that you already have with the navigation, maybe a completely different navigation, a completely different layout. It will all work and it will all connect dynamically. Okay, so this is one of the questions I get a lot. Do I get to influence if an archive looks like A or like B? And here, for example, you have the page for all the archives. But what if you have an archive for a custom post type? Maybe you have a listing with, I don't know, people in your company, and your custom post type is called people, and you probably want this archive display that displays all these posts because practically everything inside WordPress is a post and it has meta, so it has fields. All right. And then you have the patterns. Now, here we really get to the power of working with the block and site editor. This is a whole bunch of pre-made patterns by Greyd in this case. If you would install something like Ollie theme or Blocksy, you would also get a whole lot of patterns. The number of patterns that Greyd is providing you with is absolutely insane. And once you've plowed through a couple of block themes, you will understand why I'm saying that. These are the patterns they made. But you can also make patterns and you can save them. And you can save these patterns as something that you use as a one-off and you change it and it doesn't influence anything else. Or you create them as synced patterns, which means if you change them in one place, the display changes everywhere. Look at this. You do not have to reinvent the wheel. Another thing about these patterns is that if you try and poke around in the block editor and working with full site editing, it's actually putting in these patterns that can teach you so much about how full site editing works, how the block editor works, because they have put in the work for you and you get a pretty good idea. All right. And I think we should just go and do that. And before I said I was going to give you the examples based on my own websites, of which you see a copy here. But now that Greyd.Suite has released their theme to the WordPress repository, I think I'm going to use theirs, right? So we are now inside this website with Greyd theme installed as a basic. And here it says choose a pattern. Now, let's do that. I have an about page. I have this one. Ah, no, I don't like these patterns to start with. I want to start with a hero. So example, we're just going to call it that. If you're a very happy keyboard user, you're probably going to really like the block editor. I'm just going to open this one for reference. I'm going to publish this. Now, if I view this page, it's empty. This is another thing that causes confusion sometimes because commercial page builders will hide the page title for you. The block editor doesn't. So this is something you have to keep in mind. When you are inside a page, you have to mentally ignore this one. You may consider that clunky. I just call it a minor inconvenience because I'm working with a product that is well maintained, which is the most important thing for me. Okay, so I'm going to add in a pattern. I can do that by using the plus button and to go to patterns. I can also type pattern and then the name of a pattern. Okay, this is where I'm talking before I should, because this is how it would work in my site where I have created patterns that start with the name hero or whatever. Okay, let's do it the classic way then. We use this one, we go to patterns, and I'm going to first choose a hero. I think I'm going to choose this one. It's a nice example. But of course, we have much more going on than just that one. So I'm going to go down and I probably want to add in something with columns. Let's see. Put in some content, general pricing. Oh, here, columns. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to add in this one. Done. Okay. Now, if I open up the sidebar again, you'll see that all these elements are listed here. This is a paragraph, a heading, an image. You can replace it. You can add alternative text. You can say you want to change the width and the height. You have aspect ratio. You can give it style. So I could say, okay, let's make this rounded. Bam! There's all kinds of things you can set here. Okay, now let's update this and let's see what this looks like. Right, here we are. Now, can you imagine the power of you creating all these elements and using and reusing them on every site? One of the things that Core doesn't provide you with, but what Greyd.Suite does, is that you can actually export and import these on a whim with a couple of clicks. So you can reuse them over and over and over again. Now, I remember I promised to tell you something more about, let me get the program. Yeah, the styles, for example. All right. I'm going to go back to the blog home where we were. And I'm not going to confuse you so much. I'm going to go out of here, go through appearance, editor, do it the official way. As soon as you are in here, wherever you are, with this black sidebar on the left, you can just tick in here, and then you will get the global styles. And when you use Greyd theme, you can actually get to the Greyd styles. Now, important is you set your typography, which nowadays WordPress can do natively. You can upload fonts to WordPress. You can get Google fonts and then cut off Google, which we, especially in Europe, really love. You can set your color scheme. You can tell your text, your background, your captions, everything what you want that to be like. And then you have your layout, and you're going to set, for example, set the content to 1400 pixels, but the wide view would be 1600 pixels, not 16,000, and that's a bit much. And let's say you want to set some padding here. And here you see something very significant. You see here it says small. And here on the right it says medium when I shove this. Okay. This is a global setting. You only have to set that once and never think about that again when you start adding in your content. All right, and then there's something called block spacing. It's the spacing between the blocks. If I start moving this around, you see this has an immediate effect. Now, spacings is something you will want to be able to set, of course. And with the hundreds of different screen formats that we have, smartphones, tablets, phablets. Is phablet still a thing? I don't know, but probably is. You do yourself no joy by trying to do everything pixel, pixel, pixel perfect, because every screen is different. The way to go here, let me save that in the meantime to not break anything, is to set intrinsic values. If you go to Greyd styles, which were developed by Greyd because they are very keen to fill the gaps that are still in the WordPress core version. I just lost my train of thought. Let's start that again. So Greyd.Suite developed all these styles on top of WordPress core, respecting all the WordPress rules, if I say this in a non-technical way. This list on this side used to be a lot longer. But every time when in WordPress core, something from Gutenberg, which is actually the experimental plugin where they try everything out before they integrate it into core, when something from Gutenberg was implemented into core, Greyd took it out here. Because everything they can take out here, because it's maintained by core, is maintained by core, which is great. All right, so let's get back to this. You can set your font sizes, but you can use fluid typography, which means you can set a minimum and a maximum size for your fonts. And here again, we go with these variables. So huge, extra large, large, medium, base. Again, one-off values of which you get to choose later on. Another thing you do not have to think about afterwards. Also very important, you get to style buttons in a more extensive way than is currently possible in core. You get to set hover styles, for example. And in the future, if WordPress core allows it, it will also probably provide focus style. Focus styling is very important for keyboard navigation. And if you like, ping me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I will provide you with a piece of CSS, custom CSS that you can use for focus styling. All right. So then you get to style input fields. And input fields is a headache for so many people using or building with WordPress. And this is another problem that has been resolved. You get to set the font family, the size, you get to set the padding, the spacing, the letter cases in general, and then you get to set the primary input and the secondary input, and you get to set the size and everything you need for the label. And again, for accessibility, This is incredibly important because form fields without labels are actually pretty useless. All right. And then we get to what I call the icing on the cake. This is one of the reasons, of the main reasons, why I wanted to keep on listening to Thomas Koschwitz for 2 years ago, because that was my problem. I don't have responsive settings. I don't have breakpoints in Gutenberg or in the block editor. As long as I don't have those, forget about it. And he's like, yeah, well, hold on. And there he was. We have spacing. And it gets better. We have clamp. So you can set static paste spacing, you can set min-max spacing, but you can use clamp. And this is great for intrinsic web design because it means your pages will elastically adapt to whatever viewport they are on. Again, something you do not have to think about anymore. And then one of the most wanted features in the block editor. I know if you've been using commercial page builders for ages, you're probably maybe laughing a little, like, but they all have that, right? It is not that logical. But with Greyd.Suite, you actually can set spacings and you can set your breakpoints. Now, you don't see the breakpoint screen here because it says if you are using the Greyd plugin, you can define up to 4 different screen sizes. Go to the Greyd theme dashboard to install the plugin. All right, okay, let me do that really quick because that is, of course, really stupid if I can't show it to you as it should be. So I'm going to the installer here. Get started. Okay, great themes and great. They were already there. All right. Default setup. I'm going to say get me all the features. All right. I'll leave. All right. Now you see all the active features. By the way, I want to thank Greyd because they are sponsoring this webinar. They are making it possible for me to show you all this. So I'm really grateful for that. And as you can see, it says here the license is not active because now I am using this free version that you too can download and you can play around with it forever. And it means you have the hub. You can use Greyd.Suite in a multi-site like I do. You can install tons of instances of sites with Greyd.Suite, which is really easy actually. Like you create a new website, you click plus, and this goes faster than I can type, okay? So let's say I'm saying webinar, example, hello audience, and I say create site. That takes like no time. Boom, there it is. Okay, it's already there. And it has installed the default 2024 theme, and from there on I can work. And if I have predefined styles, predefined themes, predefined whatever, I can just go in here and import all of that after I activated Greyd.Suite. Even if you have a free license, you can do that. Okay, sorry for the segue here. um, this is my enthusiasm as always. So let me go back. I had activated Greyd.Suite here, and now I have all these options here. I can download content, I can download the active design and everything, but I was going to show you all these beautiful things of the breakpoints. All right, so in the meantime, I switched to a local install because my connection was being a bit weird. So here we are, same thing, basic Greyd block theme. And we're going to go back to the Greyd styles. And here we are. And I was going to show you the breakpoints. Well, it's here in Greyd styles. After spacing, we're going to get the grid. And in the grid, you get these breakpoints. It means you get to break your columns and your groups. You get to set all that. You get to set breakpoint specific settings for your grid and your query loop, which is something I'm about to show you. All right, well, I just saw that in my enthusiasm, already an hour has passed, or close to an hour, so I'm going to put things more in an all-in-one style right now. I was going to show you how the patterns work and how you can protect a layout from someone changing everything and dynamic data. So let's do that in an all-in-one. All right. So here is my pattern page. I have been testing around to make sure that I was going to show you the right thing. And inside this pattern page, I'm going to go to edit page, and you see it correctly. I'm editing the page because now we're just going to play with the block editor itself. And since we want to be sure that something that goes into a grid, let's say we're making a template for a blog post or something, we want to make sure that it looks okay. We're going to add in a couple of columns, right? Let's open this here. I have columns and I only have two, so I'm going to make 3 columns here. Okay. Let's put in an image. And we're taking one from the media library here. This one, for example. All right. And after that, we want a heading. And in this case, I know by heart that this would be a heading 3. So I'm using Markdown, blog title, right? And then I'm going to say date. I'm not going to style anything big. Styling is something you do on the right, but I don't want to drag this out any longer. And then we're going to put in here the excerpt or the description, as they like to call it here in WordPress. So this is just dummy text, and then we want this to go to read more. And this is going to be an interesting aspect because Greyd.Suite is accessibility ready, and its progress over perfection shows you might find something that is not accessibility ready yet. The basic theme, all the basic stuff is, but if you find something, let them know because they will fix it as soon as they can, which is not the same you can say about some other products, right? So this is a button, and we're going to say read more. Now, read more is a dramatic way to call a glorified link read more, because in a linked list, it's going to say read more, read more, read more, read more, read more, read more. But in Greyd.Suite, this, once it is in a query loop for a post, for a blog post, for example, the read more is going to adopt the title. And this means that someone with a screen reader does not just get read more, he gets read more and then the name of the blog post, which my friends using screen readers have told me is quite nice. So there's that. All right, let's say this is the layout that you would want for your blog posts. All right, now if I want to make this into a pattern, because I want to reuse this in other ways or quickly get it somewhere else, I'm just going inside the column. I'm not taking the entire column with me because I do not want the column. I just want this group here. And I'm going to say create pattern. Okay, blog grid basic layout. Let's call this grid. I'm gonna call it grid basic. All right, and I'm not gonna sync this one because I do not wish for this to change the same way everywhere. This is just going to be block grid basic layout. I'm going to save this. All right. It means I can use it anywhere over and over again. Now let's say I wanted to do this manually, which is a very bad idea if you want to create a grid, but just to show you the power of this, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to block grid basic layout. And because I'm typing it here, it's showing up. So bang, it's here again, right? So this is how you create and edit patterns. And the wonderful thing about Greyd.Suite is that you can actually export these patterns and import them into another install. Now, if you want to see how that goes, book an appointment with me because I'm very demo happy. I love to show you around how that works. All right. So now I will show you how you can actually do a query loop, so a grid loop of blog posts. And let me quickly check if I am in the right install so I can show you that there are, oh, that I do have dummy posts in here. Otherwise, it's not going to show you anything. All right. Oh, yeah, cool. I have 3 dummy posts in here. That is wonderful. So back to the site. And we're going to go here to the protect layout page again because we were playing around here, and we're going to do the query loop in here. So edit page. That great thing you see here, by the way, is an anchor target because in the menu in the top, I am taking you to this part of the page. Now, query loop is incredibly powerful in WordPress. So / query loop, I'm just going to type it here. And then it will let me choose a pattern, or I can start blank. Well, I was promising you I would show you the power of this, so I'm going to say start blank. And I'm just going to choose post overview, but I did not create a template for this, nor in dynamic templates, nor in sync patterns. So I'm just going to say create new template. All right, we're again in the Greyd dynamic templates. This is not the template from core. All right, we're going to go for this one. Ignore this pop-up. Log Greyd basic. Now, this is one of the differences with the commercial page builder because here you need to have your fantasy on. Oh, I'm posting here, pasting the wrong thing here. Because now I'm just going to whack in that pattern that I have created just before. And of course, that doesn't look like it's a nice small grid, but this is why I designed this inside the column. So you can see, okay, this is what it's going to look like if this is in a row of 3 posts, right? Okay, now I'm going to allow for this, for the image to be edited. I'm going to allow the block title to have a headline and for this text field to be changed. I'm going to allow the text here to be changed. Block title, I will adapt the H tag because you never know at what level this is going to come in. And we're going to get the trigger and the button text here to be changed by anyone who wants to. All right, here we have 1 paragraph too many. So remember, I called this template blog grid basic. Okay, let's refresh this page because otherwise it's not going to know that this template is there. So we're going to do this walk and talk again. So we're going to say query loop. And then I'm going to say start blank, post overview. And here in the bottom, you see blog grid basic. It's there. But oh, whoa, it's just showing what I had designed before. Now, what is the nice thing about this is that you do have this immediate visual representation working this way. And everything will be fine as soon as I start assigning the right dynamic tags to these things. Okay, so I'm going to choose for this. And I'm going to click on, I didn't use the dynamic image. All right, no, see, life in action, things can go wrong. So I'm going to go back and I want to say edit template. And instead of this being a normal image, let me open this. I'm going to remove this here and I'm going to choose dynamic image, which is something that is a feature again from Greyd.Suite. I'm going to choose this and I'm going to say you can change the image and you can actually change the focal point, which is fun because if you have images that are like vertical or very horizontal or whatever, you get to change the focal point. We're going to update here. Okay, now we're going to reload this one because now this is going to give me here this dynamic tag. Replace image, click dynamic, select the source, and I'm going to say post image. So it will always take the featured image from the post. Here I'm choosing, now I went too fast. All right, this is okay. You select the whole thing and you say post title, same thing, post date, same thing, description. And here we have something called the trigger and the dynamic tag, but we are going to select the trigger. And the trigger here is a dynamic link in this case because it is the link. You have to look all the way at the bottom in case you're wondering like where I'm at. Link to post. All right. We're going to update this, but now we still have to tell this query loop what to look for. It needs to know which posts and where, and I don't want pagination on this one. And in the query loop itself, I'm going to say post type, post. All right, nothing fancy here. And again, in commercial page builders, you would probably see those posts displayed here in the back end already, which eats tons of energy. So here you will see it in the front end. And here we are, my 3 dummy posts are displayed. Now imagine you get to decide what this grid is going to look like, which is a fantastic thing, right? Okay. Let's get back to the program. I've shown you dynamic data. I've shown you to protect the layout. I've shown you what patterns are, styles, if something is a site editor or you're editing in a page, terminology, and the difference between full site editing and page building. I hope this has been useful to you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And of course, the designs that I showed you are fairly simple, but you can actually create massive, massive projects with this. And here is just an example of a project that has been done by an agency that I know that uses Greyd.Suite. This is Mrs. Sporty. This is all built with Greyd.Suite. And here is where the power of Greyd.Suite as a suite is shown. This is the last thing I'm going to say about it. because we've just been talking about the design part here. I've shown you a little bit of the hub, but what's important to understand is what you see here is a massive multi-site. Now, this is what the back end of Mrs. Sporty looks like as well, but instead of all these different test sites that I have here, they have a site for each of their locations, a couple of hundred, and each location gets to edit some stuff locally and the rest is done globally. And as you can see in my hub, I have actually things lying around on different locations, on different subdomains in this case, but it could also be on a different domain because the whole hub here is on rebelgeneralista.eu. If I go to this multi-site install here, and I would just go to this one, and I go to the hub here, I'm in multi-demo Greyd.io, and suddenly I have my other stuff. Now, this is fantastic because with this, you can actually manage your sites, you can manage content, you can download content, you can re-import it in other sites. The possibilities are endless. And of course, I am in love with Greyd.Suite for a reason. So I hope I just hit two birds with one stone. I have shown you around in full site editing. And of course, I have shown you a little tip of the iceberg of what Greyd.Suite could do for you or your agency. And if you have any questions, come and find me. You're going to receive an email when you've signed up to watch this webinar. If you see this webinar because someone shared it with you and you haven't signed up, head over to Greyd.io and sign up or send them an email or go through the contact form or contact me, and I will make sure you do also get access to that website that came along with this webinar. It's located at rebelgeneralista.eu themes demo. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have questions, let me know. I'm going to shut down this recording now because I like to have Q&A sessions in a closed environment where nobody feels like, oh, my stupid questions, which they are never are. There are no stupid questions, but my questions are going to be on camera. No, they're not. So thank you for watching and bring me your questions.